Hello. It is the middle of winter and I'm gonna make a crop top. So I bought this wonderful, intensely blue fabric and I have a little sketch of my ideas, so let's go ahead and get started. Good afternoon. So here is the shirt currently. I actually ended up putting it down for like 3 weeks because stuff got really busy at work, and I had also been thinking of possibly doing like an extra layer across the front with pleated fabric, and I realized that that would be way easier if I have a mannequin or a dress form, which I don't have. So after kind of kicking around a couple of ideas while I was working overtime for a couple of weeks, I just ended up deciding to do this as is, and maybe I'll go back and make another version of the shirt later. Certainly I have no fabric. So finally picking it up again today. I just finished cutting out the sleeves. I'm gonna make bishop sleeves, so they're, very voluminous at the wrist, and I haven't cut out the cuffs yet, but I'll do that soon. So let's get right back into this by attaching the sleeves and starting to finally continue stitching everything together. Where we are this morning. I'm almost but not quite done with the second sleeve, so the next step is to put the cuffs onto this to make it a bishop sleeve. Now, this is not a bishop sleeve pattern, and if I had been doing this correctly, I would have looked one up. I didn't. I thought it was going to be fine. I was wrong. It is not fine, because when I do this, a bishop sleeve would come like straight down as opposed to this curve. So what I found when I went to, when I went to squish it all up, is that my cuff is going to need to be significantly longer on the back than on the front. And I'm talking like 2 or 3 inches here. So basically I played myself. Yes, it's my own fault. I don't have anyone else to blame. No, that doesn't make it any less annoying. So let's go ahead and pattern a weird looking cuff. So in order to figure out the cuff, the first thing I did, hello Angus, was to just go ahead and trace where I wanted the cuff to be. I didn't show that on camera. It would have been really awkward to film. A cat may be helpful for this, but of course is not necessary. The next step is, excuse me, I have some non-stretch cord to do the measurements with. A measuring tape would be ideal. I don't know where mine is right now, so I'm going to use non-stretch cord and a quilting ruler to get this figured out. And then I'm going to write down my measurements and draw out a pattern. So let's go ahead and take a look here. So we're looking at about 9 inches for the upper arm part, not counting seam allowance, sir. And let's get the wrist. Okay, I lied, a cat is not helpful for this. Okay, and then 5 inches for the wrist. Now this is going away, Angus. All right, let's go ahead and draw this out. Okay, so this is what I've come up with. It looks a little nonsensical, but you know, this is where I got the pattern from, so I'm not sure I trust this. The next step is going to be to make a mock-up and see how that goes. It occurred to me that before I start cutting the mock-up, I should at least make sure that this is like fairly close, so I have cut it out. I'm going to try it onto my still marked wrist. So that actually is pretty close. Can confirm this is a method to make a cuff. Can also confirm, get a pattern if you don't want to have to do this. All right, ta-da! It is not the world's most neat gatherings, but yeah, it looks really cool. So I'm very pleased with how this turned out. It looks like it fits just about perfectly. If anything, it's a little bit tight. But that's, you know, easy enough to fix. I am so stoked for how this is gonna look. And I don't think that it looks bad for having been longer on one side than the other. So yeah. Good afternoon. It is a very cold afternoon, so I'm coming to you in a cozy outfit and all set to continue my crop top endeavors. So today we are going to take a look at the cuffs, get those cut out, do all the cuff shenanigans, and then that's the second to last step. So honestly, this is a pretty quick project overall, so definitely a good project to do after making a whole dress. So once this is stitched, the next step is to turn the little seam allowance down to the inside, because we need to do that before attaching this onto the sleeve, since once there's a whole sleeve gathered into this, it's gonna be just way more difficult to actually finish the cuff, so we're gonna do that first. The process for this is fairly simple. It's basically just fold it down from the top to the stitch line, fold it down one more time. Yes, it will cover a little bit of the stitch line, and then go ahead and pin it in place. Hi Angus, you want to come up? So the stitch that I'm doing is called Cretan stitch, kind of a weird name, but basically it has very small stitches on one side and rather large, almost decorative stitches on the other side. And I could, if I really wanted to, use the decorative side on the outside. I don't want to do that because this is a cuff and this stitch length is wide enough that it could probably get caught, and I don't want to risk it pulling and like snagging and messing up the cuff really. So for Cretan stitch, basically it's a side to side stitch. You can mark where you want the stitches to be. You don't have to though, I usually just kind of do it by eye. So you're going to put the needle down through the fabric, and then on the other side, you're going to pull it like almost all the way through, but don't tighten it. And then on the other side, just make sure that it's a small bit coming through. So just a very short little stitch. Match it back up on the other side. And then you're going to loop that thread underneath. And basically this short stitch is just going to hold it in place. Like that. I'm just okay, once the cuff is done, we are ready to assemble the whole sleeve, and so the first step is, the first step is, because I have a cat, is to lint roll this. Let me do that while I tell you about the actual first step. So the first step is to gather, I love gathering, is to gather the sleeve into the cuff, and that is something that can be done a couple of different ways. I'm going to do it kind of the more like scientific, I guess, way, which I find easier, but you might find the other way easier. To get started, we are actually going to go ahead and turn the cuff inside out, because when we attach the pieces, they need to be right side to right side, and if you sew it as is, it will be inside out when you turn the shirt right side out, and then you'll cry, so don't do that. So once we've got this turned like so, the next step is I'm going to take my seams and match them up so that they match nicely. All right, once the cuff and the sleeve are adhered together, there's two different ways to gather this. You could just grab a very heavy-duty thread. This is almost but not quite button craft. What I did for the mock-up was I used this, I ran a large running stitch around the exterior of my sleeve, and then I just pulled everything to gather it down. You can do that. The way that I prefer to do it on the finished project is just a little bit more scientific and exact. And let me actually zoom in for that. That's going to make it easier. Okay, this is going to be a little bit easier to see for you guys. So I'm going to take my sleeve, fold it in half, and then mark the center point with a pin. And then I need to do the same thing on the cuff. Fold in half and find the center point. And I'm going to pin the two center points together. So all right. And there's the first little bit of pinning. Next step, we're going to find the halfway point between the two halfway points. So I'm taking my pinned points, and I'm going to match the pins up together. It's going to be hard to see because of the seam allowances, but there we are. Pins are matched up. And then now I'm going to fold this, and this is going to be a quarter of the sleeve. So mark with a pin, And then find the quarter point on the cuff. Go ahead and match those. And basically, you know, just keep doing that. There is going to be a point where you can't really keep folding it down past where it is because the large kind of plastic pin heads will start getting in the way. We're going to have to switch over to metal pins, which I prefer anyways, I just don't have a lot of them. So basically, I'm going to be between two of the pins, like so. And it's still the same process, it's just a little bit more tiddly at this point. So match the pins up, find the halfway point. And at this point, you really can't like fold the cuff to find the halfway point. You just have to turn it over and give it your best match right there. Turn it back. And then mark it with the pin. And so let's say that this amount of space was like 1/2 inch, so now it's 1/4 inch, and I recommend going down to 1/8 of an inch, but again, you know, if you're doing this project, you do you, it's your project. Okay, so I got a little bit into a groove and basically realized, like, right here that I need to actually film any of this sewing, or else you won't see it at all. Sir, this is not helping. Hello, Angus. Oh my gosh, okay. I'm gonna try this anyways, and we'll see how it works out. Here's how gathering works now that I finally remembered to show you. So I will say it takes longer than a normal backstitch. I do highly recommend backstitching this. And basically, you want to make sure that you're going through both of the stitching lines. So match it from the front, and then from here. Then back through, and the stitches are just going to be wider on the front than they are on the back. Just make sure that you're not going through another stitch, because then if you have to take it out, it's going to be terrible. I think the most difficult part of this is probably trying to get one stitch into each little valley, I guess, of the fold. But it does produce a very lovely effect, as long as it doesn't drive you completely insane. All right, last step. It is finally time to bind off the hemline. I originally intended for this to be worn only over a dress or with a skirt, but having started wearing it even before I began editing the video, I can confirm that it also looks very good with pants. I actually didn't think of wearing this with any sort of history-bounding intention. However, as soon as I put it on with the skirt for the reveal, I noticed the vest that I made with the black snail pattern, which is an 1890s vest, and I just could not resist trying it on. Can confirm with the vest a long skirt and the sleeves, you do get some pretty good history-bounding Victorian vibes, so I'm so pleased with this project. Like I said, I already started wearing it before I even began editing the video, so yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Of course, as soon as I get ready to do this, his lordship sits himself down at ease upon my project. Let me show you, one sec. Say hi, Angus. Say hi. Yeah. This cat.